Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar today. We're just going to give it a few minutes to allow people to join via the Zoom link. So bear with us while we wait for more people to enter the call. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just to let you know, we're waiting for a few other participants to join via the Zoom link. We're just going to give them a few minutes before we get started on the presentations. If you'd like to, you can introduce yourself in the chat, which country you're from, which organization you're from, and just say hello. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Michael, joining us from Dublin. Jean-Pierre, thanks for joining. A few more people joining as we speak, so we'll give it another minute. Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Carl McLean. I'm the European Region Chair for World Urban Parks, and I'm delighted today to welcome Maxime Guérin from Plante Cité to deliver a talk about various research projects that have taken place in France for the parks and green spaces sector. Before we get started, I just thought it would be useful to let you know what the agenda is today. We're going to do some introductions for Maxime, and we're also going to hear from another French parks professional to give us a bit of context on Plante Cité's role in the sector in France in particular. Maxime's going to deliver her presentation, and then we'll have time at the end for questions as well. But if you would like to, you can post questions in the chat function on Zoom or in the Q&A. And what we'll do is we'll go through those at the end. So do pop those in as they come up throughout the presentation so that we have some questions ready at the end to chat to Maxime about. And also the session is being recorded. So if you need to leave early or if you're unable to catch the whole thing, this will be posted for World Urban Parks members on the membership platform, the resources library as well. And before we get started, I would really like to welcome everybody to World Urban Parks. If you're not a member, I'm here to try and convince you that this is a really great organization to join. I personally have been involved for over 5 years now in World Urban Parks. And I got involved really because it is the peak organization, the only international membership organization that represents the parks and green spaces sector. And as a member, you really do get a huge amount of benefits, access to a huge resource library. You can connect with other professionals from around the world through the directory. We have a number of different communities, including the Europe Region Committee and other specialist committees that focus on particular park topics. And then there's also a discussion post on the platform where you could post a question about a particular challenge you're facing in your role in parks, and other professionals from around the world can help you problem solve that. Membership is really affordable. So as an individual, it can cost as little as €80 for an annual membership, or for an organization, if you want your whole parks department to have access to the World Urban Parks benefits, that can cost as little as €380 euros for an annual subscription. So do have a look at the World Urban Park website after this webinar and talk to senior management, and it really is beneficial to become a member of this fantastic organization. And I'd just like to play a YouTube video before we get started into the main presentation. This really sums up the benefits and the importance of having an organization like World Urban Parks.
Well, first of all, it's a fantastic initiative.
In a short period of time, it has become a very important institution.
And it's working to ensure that we can provide, protect, and care for parks.
And you realize the importance of sharing the information, of sharing all the knowledge of parks.
Learning about what other countries do.
An organization that brings together people with the same kind of work, the same kind of ideas.
Bueno, yo no conocía otras instancias de intercambio entre profesionales de todo el mundo.
It has been about exploration and exchange and connections.
And it creates a really fantastic network.
An organization that gathers together and reflects on how to manage, finance, design and program parks.
And impacting various communities around the globe.
It's more important than ever to exchange our knowledge and experience with each other.
It's an amazing organization, you know.
A global voice for all urban parks and communities.
Brings the focus back on parks and public space.
And World Urban Parks brings these people together.
We need more countries in Africa to join World Urban Parks.
And we do that in every country, in every culture.
Connecting park professionals around the world.
To share knowledge from one country to the other.
It's an incredible place for us to come together and really share ideas.
And providing a platform for park professionals.
An amazing platform to connect with people, to exchange resources, to exchange documents, to exchange expertise.
Which is our website and a whole lot of member resources.
Working through committees.
By being that voice.
We can share our work.
Because they're trying to weave this community of park specialists.
You know, you have a lot of great organizations that are doing a lot of great things when it comes to parks and recreation.
I encourage you to talk to the organisations that you're part of.
Support mechanism for the national organisations.
Pues es una labor especial que necesitamos las distintas organizaciones de los países.
Parks works at the intersection of public spaces, nature and placemaking. And we can think together on how to make our public spaces and our urban parks even more welcoming. Just seeing different countries come together.
Es una labor fundamental para que nos podamos encontrar.
And it's so important for us as park professionals throughout the entire world to come together.
This is an organization that is much needed now and into the future.
I salute the organization for everything that they've been doing.
I would encourage everyone to get involved in World Urban Parks.
I love World Urban Parks.
So let's come together. Please join World Urban Parks.
Great little video, and a lot of the graphics or the talks from that was from one of the World Urban Parks congresses in Monterey last year. So you do get better discounts on access to those as well. Let me just try and move on to the next slide. YouTube always stops me. Sorry about that. And just before we move on, I would also like to just talk about Future Green City, which is a World Urban Parks Joint Congress taking place in the Netherlands this year, 23rd to 26th of September in Utrecht. Lots of really great speakers at that. Really, it's going to be really fantastic for the European park sector. So do Google Future Green City and have a look at that conference that's happening in Utrecht in September. And make sure you sign up, and we'd love to see you there. So before we get started, I know it seems like we're building up to the grand presentation, but I thought because Plante Cité, who Maxime represents today, is such a unique organization, it would be great to get an overview of how that organization has impacted the park sector in France. So I'd like to introduce Jean-Marie Rogel, who works for Lyon Metropolitan Municipality and is also a representative of Hortus, just to give us an overview of the importance of Plante Cité in the park sector in France. Jean-Marie.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. First of all, a big thank you to Maxime Guérin for agreeing to present Plante Cité and, above all, its program and research teams. I will leave to Maxime to describe the structure and the role of Plante Cité in detail, but first I wanted to say in introduction how fortunate, how lucky French local authorities and urban nature area managers are to have such a structure in France. Historically, through its research programs and publication, Plante Cité has capitalized on and shared many subjects related to plant management, particularly in urban environments. These tools are invaluable, very precious for all managers of urban green spaces, but also used to raise awareness of best practices among elected representatives, elected people, and also to adapt departmental budgets for the mission. I'm thinking in particular of the differentiated management tools and zero pesticides approaches that have made France a pioneer in these fields. And today, in the context of the ecological transition and the city's adaptation to climate change, we face a number of contradictory challenges. And it's all the more valuable to have a tool like Plante Cité to objectivize problems and share them more effectively between the various players in the city. There are an enormous number of subjects to be dealt with in connection with urban greening and forestation projects, the question of soils, the choice of suitable adapted species, etc., etc. For example, a working group has been set up with representatives of the ministry and heritage architects to reconcile the challenges of nature and the preservation of architectural and landscape heritage. Plante Cité has grown a lot since its creation, but I will let Maxime tell you more about it. And thank you her again for sharing it with the World Urban Parks Europe group. Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Jean-Marie, for all these kind of things you say about us.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marie. And so just before we start, I'd like to formally introduce Maxime. So Maxime graduated as a horticultural engineer from the National Institute of Horticulture in Angers in 2008. And she's been working in this field since 2010 as a research engineer, and then more recently as a project manager at Plante Cité. Her specialized field of work is focused on integrated pest and weed management. And as Jean-Marie mentioned in the introduction, this has become a real focus area considering the current climate crisis and the current biodiversity crisis that we're seeing across Europe and the rest of the world. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Maxime to share your presentation, and we look forward to hearing all about it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will share my talk. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, that's working perfectly.
Okay. So thank you for the, thank you. I'd like to thank the World Urban Pact to give me the opportunity to give this talk today. So I will start by presenting our organization and then give you 3 examples of projects we are currently working on. So as Jean-Marie said earlier, parks, gardens and environment services of local authorities and landscape companies have been facing since the end of the 90s economic, environmental, and society challenges for the creation and management of green spaces. In this context, professionals needed an organization where to discuss their practices and their evolution, which can act as a link between them, but also an organization that can lead projects and produce resources to develop new ways to manage urban green spaces. And to meet this need, Plante Cité was therefore created in 2005 in Angers. Angers is a city labeled as a National Horticulture Center for France, so there is a lot of researchers and lots of experts in this area that helps the creation of Plante Cité. And it was created on a collaborative approach with representatives from urban park planning and maintenance services, research institutes and technical advisory organization for professionals. Donc you can see here all the founding members. Hortis was part of the founding members, and we benefit from the support of the French Association of Mayors, the Environment Ministry, the umbrella organization of landscaping and ornamental horticulture Valor, and the French National Office for Biodiversity. Donc we are a non-profit organization with 15 employees, which play the role of the National Technique Center dedicated to green spaces and urban landscape. Our missions are to identify issues and professionals' needs about nature in the cities, build partnership with green spaces stakeholders and carry out studies and research, disseminate and share knowledge with local authorities and member companies, in order to support the evolution of the professional practices and innovation for sustainable development. Our area of expertise are agronomy and urban soils, green spaces eco-management, greening strategies and urban ecology, nature-based solution, and landscape, urban design, and health. We have more than 750 members today, from all over France, which are mainly municipalities and landscape companies, but it can also be, as you can see, professional federation, research institutes, or training centers. We also have several members in Belgium, in Spain, in Luxembourg, and in Canada. And in 2011, we had the opportunity to create a counterpart in Switzerland, which has around 60 members today. All our work is addressed to professionals from France, but we try to translate part of our content in English, so that way we can share the results with other interesting structures all around the world. Donc our team of engineers, members, and experts are directly involved in drawing up the annual research program, which takes place in 3 stages. We've got 6 thematic working groups. Here you can see the themes, the topics, to identify the expectations and needs of professionals to which members and partner organizations are invented. Then there is a technical steering committee to prioritize emerging projects with the participation of administrators and representatives of the working groups. And finally, we've got the scientific advisory board to guide the development of projects and the dissemination of knowledge with the participation of experts and scientists from a variety of disciplines. And finally, the board of directors validates the emerging projects to be developed next year, more on budgetary aspects. And this, in the end, there is around 10 new projects each year that are launched, for a total of around 30 projects being carrying out in parallel every year. Once the emerging projects have been selected, the next step is to build and implement them. To do this, we've got several ways to work on it. We draw up a state-of-the-art on the subject to be explored to see if data or resources document already exist. And then, if it's the case, a literature overview may suffice to answer the need. If this is not the case, we opt for a research and experimentation project or a survey and observatory of professional practices, depending on the needs. This will require also to build partnership with research institutes, experimentation structure, advisory and support structure, and representatives of landscape professionals. And during this phase, it will also be necessary to identify sources of funding to enable the project to be carried out. Since we are a non-profit organization, we don't have a lot of funds, so we need to find specific funds for every project. And then, if all the boxes are ticked, the project is effectively launched, with projects lasting from 1 to 5 years, depending on their type, culminating in the production of technical guides, online tools, technical meetings, and webinars addressed to the landscape professionals. Donc, the results are accessible to all if the project received public funding, which is very often the case, and if not, the results are reserved for our members. Donc, everything is a reference on our website, which can also be used to find out more about events and use in the landscape sectors, and to search for bibliographical references from technical documentation produced by other stakeholders, scientific articles, or articles in the professional press. Most of the content is accessible to all, with the exception of webinars and documents financed by our own funds reserved for members. And some of the contents and extract of our annual thematic publication is available in English, so we can see it later. Here you can see a few examples of our project publications about some main topics of work for us: ecological design of landscape public spaces, green spaces in urban planning, ecological management of green spaces in the West Indies, alternative to felling, grubbing, and revitalization, permeable pavement for urban development, or green spaces and health, which are a few examples of the last publication we published the last 3 years. Here it's a presentation of our annual review publication that exists since 2015 because our members felt the needs for an attractive paper publication that would provide an overview of a cross-cutting issue. The first issue was dedicated to wild flora and to other way to manage it. And here you can see the topics we have been working on in recent years, with an issue dedicated to urban soil in 2023. And for next year, the topic the edition will focus on water. And some extracts of this publication are available in English on our website. We also develop and run other internet platforms and online tools in collaboration with and thanks to the support of various organizations. Donc, the first one is Ecophyto Pro. It is a resource center developed as part of the National Ecophyto Plan, donc the action plan on reducing the use of pesticides, that brings together the references and knowledge available to raise awareness among landscape professionals of the need to reduce the use of plant protection products and enable them to change their practices. The second one is Nature en Ville. It's a resource center too, listing the initiative developed as part of the National Nature in the City plan, and providing feedback for urban and ecology players, like local authorities, businesses, or associations, on preservation, integration into urban development, renaturation of areas, or more strategic approaches from a planning perspective. Here you can see 3 tools we develop. The first one is Barème de l'Arbre. It's an online platform that allows you to assess the monetary value of a tree and to assess the damage suffered by a tree and calculate the amount of possible compensation in the event of a damage caused to a tree. Then it's Floriscope. It's a tool to help choose plants for your landscaping, offering an operational encyclopedic database on ornamental plants and where you can consult theme list of inspiration on nurseries catalogs. And the last one is EcoJardin. It's a tool that, through site certification, rewards the works of field staff and gives the opportunity to communicate and publicize ecological management practices. And at last, I'd like to present you a new activity for us, the creation of a serious game on ecological management. It was an initial order from the Ministry of Ecology to speed up the deployment of ecological management on sites managed by the state and other public bodies. The principle is that the players take on the role of a team in charge of managing a public institutions' green spaces. Throughout the game, they discuss the actions to be taken to manage green spaces in the most environmental friendly way possible, while reconciling these challenges with budgetary constraints, available time, the acceptability of practices, and being at the mercy of unforeseen events. Donc the game can be downloaded online free on charge, but it's in French only for the moment. And I will now present you 3 examples of our current project. So for a change, let's start with Desert, a project about desealing ecosystem services and territorial resilience. Desealing could be set up for many urban uses, surfaces and materials. Here are some illustrations of projects including desealing operations for parking or roadside, for example, where asphalt is usually replaced by green area using topsoil, excavating from natural or agriculture area. Although there is a growing number of desealing operations implemented in urban areas, advanced scientific literature underlines the need to deseal, there is a lack of studies on desealing methods. The following aspects remain to be explored: multi-criteria methodologies to identify pertinent sites for desealing, and knowledge on sealing and desealing technosoil characteristics, functions, and evolution. This is why a consortium of partners decided to set up a research project to answer with this question. The project DESER was launched in 2020 by 3 research institutes. You can see here Laboratoire Sol et Environnement, Université de Lorraine and INRAE, with other structures including Plante Cité, who was involved because the PhD was done in Plante Cité, and we are also involved in sharing the knowledge when the project will be finished. Donc here you can see Robin and Claire, which are my 2 colleagues working on this project. The aim is to explore whether the different desealing chosen strategy mitigate the sealing effects and leads to an improvement of soil function and services by acquiring technical and scientific knowledge on desealing soils, making desealing solution usable for urban areas by integrating the issues of circular economy with reuse of materials and adaptation to climate change, and producing technical design assistant guides for designers, planners, and managers. In order to do so, the action plan was to carry out an online survey to identify desealing projects and collect feedback. This has enabled us to identify and describe 61 projects from small towns to major cities, conducted experiments to assess and optimize desealing, experimental monitoring under control conditions to test desealing methods, and then pilot trials in 3 cities to test desealing methods. And our colleagues has just submitted its thesis at the beginning of the month, and the remainder of the year will be devoted to writing the technical guide and other deliverables of this project. Here you can see the web page where you can find a description of the project, but it's only available in French. The second project was born, it's a Greenlands project. It was born of the fact that the Northwest Europe is experiencing a rapid increase in the effect of climate change, with high heat stress, air pollution, droughts, and floods, and that a nature-based solution can mitigate these effects and provide other services, but they are difficult to implement in dense urban areas. That's why that's a question that I hope the Greenlands project will answer. It's an Interreg project being piloted by the city of Dordrecht in Netherlands. You can also see the other city involved on the map. And we are involved here as knowledge partners, like other structures in other places in Europe. The program has been designed around 3 key issues to allow nature-based solutions to be integrated into dense urban areas. The integration of green infrastructure into urban planning across the board by a cross-disciplinary approach. A mosaic approach to enable the deployment of NBS on a small scale with a purpose despite a strong competition for space. And a project based on social design to involve local residents in whole process and facilitate its acceptance. Here you can see how the different type of partners will contribute to the different areas of work. For the pilot, this will involve to conduct experiments under real conditions, complete feedback reports, and contribute to the exchange program. For the knowledge partners as us, to support the pilots by providing expertise, to collect and analyze feedback data, and to contribute to the exchange program. And for the networks, to connect the project to European and wider networks, to organize the replication of solutions tested by the pilots, and to contribute to the exchange program too. The project has just started. The first meeting was in February, and plans to promote the action plan of the 8 pilot cities and provide the keys to replicate what has been tried in other contexts, to draw up recommendations at all levels based on feedback from the 8 pilot cities, and to contribute to the development of training programs for professionals deploying NBS. And here you can see the link to find out more about the project. And for the next project, we will talk about pesticide-free towns and ways to reduce use and impact of pesticides throughout the municipality territory. For many years now, French local authorities wish to take action to protect water resources, biodiversity, and local residents from the impact of pesticides, a phenomenon that has accelerated since they can no longer use them to manage their own species, because in 2017, there was a regulation that has banned the use of chemical pesticide in public areas. As a result, since 2019, the mayors of around 100 municipalities have issued a decrease banning or restricting the use of synthetic plant products in their areas. However, all these decrees have been overturned by the administrative courts, as regulation on the use of plant protection products fall within the sole remit of the state. In consequence, local authorities have found it difficult to come up with solutions that go beyond a simple plan. That's why they needed help to identify action triggers via other areas of responsibility within their field of action in order to extend the pesticide-saving approaches throughout the whole commune territory. Ce projet Territoire sans pesticides was thus launched in 2020. It's a project led by Plante Cité in collaboration with the French Ministry of Ecology and the National Biodiversity Agency. Here you can see we are several colleagues working on this project. And it is a project based on field experience made up of different areas of work. An analysis of the blind spot in the current regulation to identify situations and areas of the local territory where products may continue to be used. An inventory of the initiative taken and supervised by local authorities to encourage the adoption of practices that use fewer plant protection products via a call for reports, a watch on the regional daily press, and a network watch. In addition, to provide an inspiring example, the aim is to identify the factors that determine the success of this initiative. All this in order to design a catalogue of solutions in the areas of competence that can be mobilized by local authorities. And I will now share with you some first results. And here you can see where to find out more about the project. So French law prohibits the use of synthetic plant protection products in areas and accessible, open and accessible to the public and in residences, with a few exceptions. Here you can see where synthetic pesticides may be still be used, with the first block showing the type of site where they are almost systematically used on conventional agriculture plots, of course, but also on transport infrastructure and industrial sites where weed killers are used for safety reasons. The second block shows the type of site where products are still sometimes used, with a particular case on natural areas. This may be surprising, but French and European law does not prohibit directly the use of pesticides on this site, despite the fact that phytosanitary products and even banned substances are sometimes used to control invasive alien species. Managers of natural areas are sometimes prepared to do anything to eliminate unwanted plants. And beyond failing to consider the unintended effects on non-target species, this also demonstrates a great ignorance of the regulation governing the use of pesticides on the part of these managers. But you can see that there is also other areas where they are still used. And for some of them, they are stated intention to develop pesticide-free strategy, engage with the ecology ministry. It's the case for airports, for motorways, for railways, and for golf courses. Donc, on this map of a suburban commune of Île-de-France, you can see in pink or in orange the proportion of land that can still be treated, which represent a significant surface area. You can see here it's about approximately 50% of the area of this municipality. And as a local councillor, you can still have considerable room for maneuver to reduce the use and impact of pesticides throughout your area. Donc, our watch has enabled us to identify around 50 initiatives related to land strategies, to town planning provisions, agri-environmental developments and schemes, multi-stakeholder charters and territorial dialogue, and economic and sectoral schemes. And these examples are worth noting that most of them concern agricultural issues and mainly in areas affected by priority water catchment areas. A wide range of action levels within the remit of local authorities have been mobilized, and that the initiatives are led by dynamic of local players in terms of the engineering and monitoring. Donc you can see here the example of a district in charge of a catchment area, which has chosen to draw up a charter in collaboration with all the stakeholders. The charter signatories choose from a pool of action the ones they wish to commit. Concerning the growers, here you can see the most unique actions, the construction of collective sprayer washing areas, an help to improve the management of stock plant protection products, a support and advice to develop the use of mechanical weed control, the development of plot swaps and overland use tools to keep the risk away from key areas, And the context allowed the project to benefit from a state subsidy, which has invaluable for the which was invaluable, sorry, for the successful implementation of the action plan. As we see all the examples we were able to find, we can conclude that to ensure that the approach lasts over time and is adopted by the target professional, it needs to involve all the stakeholders in the development of the approach and build the project in a collaborative way. To have human resources dedicated to coordinating the process, which in practical terms means to recruit at least one person whose sole mission is to do so, and to think carefully about the financing arrangements. On the other hand, as with many other issues, a change of the council team, especially if they are not of the same political affiliation, brings the project to a halt in general. So that's my last, that was the end of my talk, and I thank for your attention. If you have any question, let me know.
Thank you very much, Maxime. That was fantastic. I was really fascinated. Three projects that were really fascinating, but also I'm just hugely impressed by the process within Plante Cité for identifying projects, up to 10 projects a year. And I mean, that was my first question in the chat. Like, I'm not aware of any other national organization that does this type of academic research, particularly focused on parks and green spaces. And I wondered, do you know of any others in other countries that kind of are the same model as Plante Cité?
No, we were looking. We made some research to find out if there were some, and we couldn't find any other example. There was something in Belgium, in Wallonie. Centre Wallon de gestion différenciée, I think it was the name. But that was quite equivalent, but it was the only example we could find. But in France, it's a way of working that exists in other agriculture areas, because there is an equivalent of our structure for cereals, for vineyard, for arboriculture, for example.
Yeah, and it seems like it looks at solving a particular problem within the sector, but also it can simultaneously provide the evidence base that parks professionals need in order to get support for things like reducing pesticide use. So it seems like a really strong structure. That also, one of your earlier slides mentioned the French Association of Mayors. So there's a political aspect to it as well, which is a really key part, I guess. So yeah.
And also professional association, national peak association like artists and other associations. And maybe Maxime, you could precise, if it's not a trap question, how many people work in Plante Cité?
Yeah, so we are 15 employees. There is our director. We are 6 engineers, and there is a documentalist, a webmaster, some secretaries and things like that to make our organization work. And we have around 3 to 5 part-time contract or trainees each year to help us.
Thank you.
I had a question about well, 2 projects. The first one, desert, and the last one about pesticide use or elimination. But both of them seem to have connections to water, the water table. So the desealing, I know it was probably more focused on soil health in terms of soil aeration and nutrients and things, but it also obviously affects runoff, water runoff, and in turn affects, could affect flood mitigation or But what I'm thinking is both of those projects seem to have close ties to the water companies or water agencies. How is that? How have you developed a relationship with them to discuss the projects?
Alors, donc, the National Office for Biodiversity is a representative of them because it's not very. It was it's an organization, a national organization that has mixed previous organization, and one of them was the National Water Agency. So they are involved in both projects, and so they can be aware of what we are doing and improve and give advice on how to conduct the projects. And there is also the French Ministry of Environment, which is the ministry we will treat about water issues.
But those are national administrations. It's not a private company, if it was your question.
Yeah, when private companies are involved, it's when they can do experiments, for example, because they got a specific competence, but most of the time they are not involved in the leading the project, because we want to be objective in our results, and to don't have any financial interest finding a specific result or something like that. So
I understand. And we haven't got any other questions in the chat, but I do have lots. So I was curious. I know you've done lots of prototype testing, I guess, for interventions in different cities, and I think it's great that you do these sort of real world tests. But how long is it taking for the solutions to then be adopted in the real world? By a town or municipality actually desealing large areas of footpath, or how long do you think it takes for it to be put into action, some of the research findings?
Most of the time, the issue, we don't start from the beginning, so things are already happening at small scale or with a few actors. And our project, we will just allow the technique or the topic to be more widely applied. But I think in a few years, most of the time, you can see a change, depending on the subject, because sometimes it can be easier to change, to adapt what you're doing, because the subject is quite specific. And when it's more global, it takes several years. But most of the time, when we lead a project, because some actors are already doing something, and they want to know if what they do if they do it the right way.
Yeah, if it's viable or not in the real world. I mean, to be honest, a few years is quick to translate something from the academic world into real delivery. That is quite fast, because we know that academic studies that came out 10 years ago on, I don't know, food health or something like that are only really being adopted now. So it's good to see that things are already tested in certain ways, and then they can be quickly adopted. So that's great to hear.
It could be quickly adopted, but it depends of the subject, as Maxime said, because, for example, on ecological management, even if we have a best practice recommendation, it's a work that has to be done every day, every year, and repeating, because all people, all gardeners, and all citizens don't accept the principle each time, and it asks a lot of communication, and we have to do that regularly to spread best practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose that's where the relationship with political leaders through like the Mayors Association is really important, because that can sometimes be the barrier to getting to the delivery stage. But if they are involved in it in some way, or at least they're briefed on it along the way, then they can understand what the proposals are and hopefully not prevent the interventions happening.
And we can, we share, we try to share it the more we can. So if somebody is organizing an event where we can talk about specific topic, we try to be there to hope that the results will be applied by most of the people.
Yeah. I noticed on the Green Dance project, you talked about social design, and how, for some of these changes to be accepted, you need to work closely with communities. That reminded me of a project Plante Cité did around acceptance of weeds in towns and cityscapes. And I wondered, did that help you with this project in some way? Because there was a lot of what's the word, like psychological studies done on how people accept change in the green environment. Tell us a bit about that.
I think since this first program, so it was program Acceptaflora, it was in 2009. The subject was if we can't weed or chemical weed the wild flora anymore, we have to find a way to manage it, and one way is to accept it. So we studied if it was a problem to have wild flora in the cities, and if people noticed it and wanted it to be removed or not. And I think it was a very important program for us, because it was a way to work that we then applied to different projects, because it was a way to demonstrate that if you do everything good, but you don't help people to understand what you are doing, in a way, it won't work. Because when, for example, there is a change in how the area will be, the appearance of the area, for example, if you don't explain why, sometimes they can see it as a lack of involvement of the municipality, of the technical services. So we now know that on every kind of subject, you have to find way to communicate the results and to involve all the stakeholders. That way it will be easier to accept the change.
And since the beginning of this work, it was maybe 20 years ago, nearly. Now in France, we have a really good acceptance of weeds in public spaces. It's now an evidence for everyone.
Yeah, I certainly noticed that when I went to a Hortus conference in Bordeaux.
Yeah.
So I think I went to a few of the public parks there, and you walk in the gate and you can tell it's not quite managed to this old-fashioned, like formal, everything is weeded perfectly. So you've got a mixture of intentional horticultural plants mixed in with a bit of weed growth here and there. And it's hard to, as someone coming from the UK and Ireland, it's hard to kind of imagine how that worked. But when I saw it happening in Bordeaux and then later in some other towns in France, I was like, actually, this does work. It looks a little bit wild. It looks, at first, from a horticultural training perspective, you're a bit like, oh, what's going on here? But eventually you kind of understand that it does work, and the borders are filled, and there might be weeds popping out here and there, or weeds on paths and things, but something about it does work, and that experience definitely changed my perspective of how you can have a completely new way of managing parks that has been driven from research from someone like Plante Cité.
And it's not everywhere, and it has to be explained to the population, but it's really good accepted.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think we're just about ready to wrap up, everyone. Before we go, I just wanted to mention that Plante Cité obviously have a really great website, and they do have a couple of English sections on there, or you can use Google Chrome to kind of translate it into whatever your language of choice is. And they do have several publications on there, including publications that have been translated into English too. So do check out the Plante Cité website, and of course, check out the World Urban Parks website, because we have a limited number of free resources, but obviously you get the best benefits and the networking connections through becoming a World Urban Parks member. So if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to say thank you very much to Maxime, and thank you, Jean-Marie, for joining as well from France. And keep an eye on the World Urban Parks Europe region, because Maxime's actually the first of a series of webinars that we're hosting throughout the year. So do check in and keep an eye on the Twitter feed for World Urban Parks, because there'll be more webinars like this coming up in future. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you, Maxime.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.